Thank you, everyone. First of all, this is the last panel, and I would say the star panel, as most of the people say. There is a little background. Um, Varun sir is my senior from Delhi College of Engineering, and I think almost 40 days back is when I got in touch with him, requesting him that will he grace this occasion for us along with Ghazal ma'am. So I think it didn't take much time and said, okay, we'll be there for the panel. So thank you both of you for taking out time. I know you have really busy schedules to do for doing this.
But thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. And thank you for willing to listen to us. I know it's been a long day and we are between alcohol and, you. And so we'll try and be crisp, like, and try and make it interesting.
Great. So before we get into the serious part, I'd like to understand, we have seen your journey from that kiosk outside of a store where you wanted to sample products to today, which is the biggest name in the D2C segment. So just wanted to understand that from this journey, from 0 to 1 to 100, now 1,000, I would say, what has remained constant throughout? What is that one thing which hasn't changed maybe in your personal life and both professional life that you'd like to just let us know?
I think thankfully, एक तो अभी तक हम भी कंपनी में हैं, हमने शुरू की थी, and कई बार founders ही नहीं रहते, but so I think that hasn't changed, and in personal life also we continue to be together and have a very hot and happening personal life, and we keep it like that. Right? So I think वो भी नहीं बदला है and बदलने भी नहीं देंगे हम. And but I think from a brand perspective, Ghazal, why don't you sort of?
So like you said, brand ka idea came to us when we had our son Agastya, and we were looking for natural toxin-free products for him. Couldn't find anything in India. Started importing products from outside of India, and coming from a middle class background, we realized that that was not just a pain, but also very expensive, and affordability was becoming an issue. And that's when, as a cribbing wife, I remember we started talking that why is no brand doing something about it? Why are there no toxin-free, certified safe toxin-free products available in India? Because outside of India, there were plenty of options. That matter, they also had certain regulations around what ingredients can be used, cannot be used. India did not have that at that point of time. So I think that's what led us to think about Mamaearth. उस time पे अगर कोई और brand सुन लेता तो शायद हम brand नहीं create करते. Like you said, I think day one, and we were very sure that one thing that we want to really focus on is listening to consumers and understanding them and asking them what is it that they are looking forward to. So the first store के बाहर खड़े होके हमने छोटा सा sampling session किया था with our consumers was our first interaction with them. And the entire purpose behind doing that was to let them experience the products that we thought they would need and sort of be very sure that this is something which will add back value to them. And I think that's also one of the values which has stayed constant till today. Listening to consumers is something which we very actively, not just as founders, but as an organization, do and personally connect with them. So that's how we started, and of course started very small. At that point of time, we thought we were just going to be a baby brand, and of course putting numbers into Excel sheets looked funny because in your mind you're thinking, मतलब 100 crore का brand बन जाएगा, मतलब how do, and we started with all of that. That said, we also focused on not just long-term goals, but short-term goals. So taking one step at a time and continuing to move forward was another thing that we did well, and we continue to do that today as well. And apart from that, I think the third thing that we were paranoid around back then was quality of the products. Because we knew that babies so young cannot take the chance of not experiencing the best of products using the best of ingredients. And that paranoia around quality, because we were using the same products on our kids, continues to exist even today in the system, where each and every product that gets launched or goes out in the market, we ensure we as a family are personally testing it, apart from all the clinicals and all the regular tests that goes for that product. So I think that quality till today, even now that we have not just one brand, which is Mamaearth, with more than 300 products, but 6 brands under our portfolio, we continue to do that for each of our brands till today.
Which is so great. I think I'm also into entrepreneurship for almost decent 10, 11 years. This is one thing which we also inculcate in our journey, is to actually listen to customers and go back and try to solve as much as possible. And that's really commendable on your part. So I just wanted to touch a little more on the personal life before we get to the professional questions. There is a saying that behind every successful man, there is a woman. But from an outsider, what I can see is behind a successful woman, there is a man. Right. So what do you have to say about this equation?
ये मेरी भी favorite line है, that behind every successful woman, there's not just a man, but there's a progressive man who continues to believe in her dreams and ends up being the wind beneath her wings. And that man for me has been, of course, him. I think through thick and thin, through all kinds of absurd ideas to illogical conversations, to logical conversations also. I mean, imagine how many people really support you on things that you really want to do. I mean, to begin with, us as husband and wife, I think the first time we were talking to each other, and we've had an arranged marriage. So he was asking me, what are your passions? And I said, painting is a passion. And in the quest of building a life for yourself, I could not take up my passion professionally. I didn't learn, right? And I still remember he picked up a few of my works. He sent it to universities without letting me, New York Academy of Arts and Visual Arts, and a couple of art academies there. And I got to know about it when he got a reply from them. And he said, you know what? You're going to New York to study art. Now, it was the first time when I'd experienced anything like that I just, out of a mere conversation, mentioned it, and he ensured that it was becoming a reality. And of course, I think that's the core why we as husband and wife and founder and co-founder have survived these years, because शुरू में ये भी question आते थे कि यार business में disalignments होती हैं, what if you guys decide to part ways? And we were like, yeah. But we are very happily doing that, right?
Not parting ways, but matlab.
Not parting ways, but building a company and a life together. I am.
I know,
Since you asked that question, I can go on and on, but I'll keep it short.
हम वो meetings करके आते थे, and people used to ask, अच्छा नहीं, but what if you part ways? What if you part ways? And when we used to step out of those meetings, she used to say कि यार मतलब चलो पैसे ना दो, but साला तलाक तो मत कराओ यार, मतलब मतलब ये क्या है?
100 बार बोलने के बाद बंदे को दिमाग में लगता है कुछ यार ये कोई होता तो नहीं है कहीं. You're so right, and the way you look at her while she was answering speaks a lot about that. So now coming to the professional part of it. You were initially a pure D2C brand selling online, and then you moved to offline retailing, right? You started your own stores, and I think it's a mix of company-owned and maybe franchisee. Have you started doing franchising now?
No franchisee, all company-owned.
It's all company-owned right now. So, and these two are two different behemoths to actually deal with at the same time, right? Going offline, going online first and then offline, obviously poses a lot of challenges for you. So just wanted to understand, how did you switch gear between the customer which is going online and then purchasing offline, or are they complementary to each other? We just overemphasize on these two things differently.
I think let me divide the two questions and answer the second one first, and then move to the first one, which is more relevant to us, right? I think this physically, if you look at the customers, right, all of us as humans, and sometimes we use some of these jargon. Business perspective, I think, of course, to start with, it was by default, right? Not by design. मतलब पैसे नहीं थे offline में जाना and like creating, or either investing in store infrastructure or getting into general trade where you need a brand pull, right? Because there is no way to discover a brand in an offline environment if you're getting into a multi-brand environment. Right? You might be there in 5,000 SKUs, amongst them you have 3. Right? And the consumer needs to ask for your brand. That's the only way to sell in an offline physical environment. So when you have lesser resources and when you have technology available to reach out to the most effective and evolved early adopters of a category, right? Online absolutely makes sense. And hence, while for a Mamaearth, our focus today is offline expansion because it has reached a certain level where millions of consumers are buying it, and hence the category and where the category gets sold is where we would want to be present. Right? But for all our younger brands, right, they continue to be 100% online because their consumer really lies there. Right? So for us, it was a natural journey and find the most evolved consumer first by targeting through social and digital mediums. And once you have built a certain level of franchise, right, and once your consumer is now looking for buying those products and your hero products in an offline environments, right, extend it into offline. Right, and once you have large enough assortment, right, then doing and opening your own exclusive outlets because you need to be able to have a certain rent to revenue ratio to extend that. Right? And that journey really helped us because by the time we reached the outlet opening kind of stage, we had enough data about each pin code, right? To be able to say, hey, which pin codes are the most densely populated for our consumers, right? In which pin codes, and hence that's where you start by opening or expanding stores, right? In those pin codes, what is the kind of assortment people are buying into, right? So that you can actually do the right assortment entry, right? Your Bangalore Whitefield store versus your Punjabi Bagh store in Delhi, right, would have very different assortment and promo mix that might be there because we already had that data. So I think that's how at least our journey has evolved from D2C to exclusive environments.
So there are two questions follow up on this is, do you find this behavior that आपका कस्टमर ऑफलाइन कुछ देखता है बट जाके ऑनलाइन खरीदता है ऐसा कुछ आर यू एबल टू ट्रैक दीज थिंग्स और it doesn't happen in a real life scenario? Those who wants to buy anything, it doesn't matter for them to buy it either online or offline. It really doesn't matter to them. This is one question. Second one, if any new entrepreneur is starting up their journey of going offline, they're already a decent brand maybe online, but now they want to start. So what are the key points that they should keep in the mind while going offline? So two questions.
So I think first question, ki consumer, does he decide he or she wants to buy online or offline, and how does that navigate? What, at least in my view, I think it's a journey that happens, especially for any new brand, right? She might see something in an online or an offline space where awareness starts happening around that particular brand. You see a follow-up communication, let's say that happens more on social than in offline because offline is a cluttered market, is where consideration starts happening. And then when in her mind she's very sure that she wants to try it, wherever she encounters it first, she can actually buy the product from, be it online or offline, right? In my view, that's an ideal. I mean, if I'm also a consumer of a lot of products, right? I'm looking at a brand, I'm continuously learning about it, I want to know more about it. Probably online would be the first place where I would say, okay, let me try this product. This seems to be an easy to use product for me, and I can experiment with a price point which might be slightly lower than rest of the portfolio, right? I would first try a product like that, and if I like the brand, if I like the product, if I like the whole experience, then I would go surf through their entire portfolio, see if there's anything else that I want to try, and then that might be one of the places where I say that I want to experience their assortment, what all do they really have, how do they communicate, where I might want to go to an offline store and want to experience that product. So I think for a lot of consumers, that's how the journey evolves. I mean, Varun, you want to add to it?
Yeah, and we see that behavior. I mean, like our EBO stores, people would buy from there, and then they would buy from our website as well, and because they are interconnected CRMs, right, we can clearly see that that common behavior is happening, right? And honestly, different categories respond to this a little differently. And, categories where the consumer is actually looking for social proof are far more tuned to online purchasing, right? Because consumer is actually looking to read reviews or understand कि यार बाकी लोग क्या बोल रहे हैं इसके बारे में. On the other hand, categories which are far more experiential in nature, where you want to, buying a car, for example, right? You want to actually experience, test drive the product, and sort of, be comfortable having or being in that product, right? Which would far more happen in a physical environment. And तो थोड़ा category पे भी depend करता है.
And price also maybe? Sometimes price also is a factor.
Price, from a level of involvement perspective, yes, right? I mean, honestly, iPhones are expensive, right? But still a lot of purchase happens online, right? Because it's a standardized product, right? And experience doesn't vary as much. If you've experienced it once, you know कि यार वो मतलब next model आ रहा है, okay होगा. And on the other hand, some other products might be far more, including something that you want to buy for your house, and you actually want to sit on that couch and feel sort of how it'll be. So I think it matters a bit on the category, but I feel it's also very, it's common for a consumer to experience something offline or online and then buy it in another environment, and consumers don't feel as much disconnected. It's happening pretty seamlessly.
So the lines has really blurred now. It doesn't actually matter whether you're offline or online. Great. So I think we can go to the last set of questions, which is around technology. And I know you are an engineer from the same alma mater. So I believe that you have that knack of dealing with technology on a daily basis. So in recent times, have you encountered any piece of technology which you believe is going to be really disruptive, both the online world or the offline world? So any one thing, it could be AI, metaverse, anything of that sort, or maybe something very different from this. So any piece of technology that you believe is going to change a few things.
सबसे पहले तो I would like to sort of thank you for considering me as a technology person just because of my engineering degree, right? When I passed and from my college, I did electrical engineering, and मतलब the only thing that my family used to expect is ये बल्ब बदल दोगे तुम? अब हमें
सर वो आज भी true है.
अब हमें electrician को बुलाने की जरूरत तो नहीं है. अब तुम मिक्सी ठीक कर दोगे खराब होगी तो. I used to know if you have a turbine issue, I can take care of it. आपकी टरबाइन खराब हो जाए तो आप मुझे बुला लीजिएगा. But anyways, jokes apart, right? I honestly believe AI has a lot of potential, right? We're already seeing even in our businesses, be it from content perspective, be it from visuals perspective, right? It's shaping up and helping our teams become far more efficient, right? So that is one piece of technology that we are very closely watching, and we are working with multiple large groups, be it Google, Adobe, etc., to figure out how we can implement that technology aggressively across organization. Right? So I think we'll all look forward to how that shapes up.
And coming back to the second part of the question, my last question was, if a new entrepreneur is coming up, what are the key 2-3 things that they should clearly avoid while experimenting in going offline? Because there are a lot of people who will be listening to this, perhaps those mistakes which they can avoid.
So I think one of the things that, at least from what we have learned building our company, Honasa, and building an Omnichannel with Mamaearth as a brand, is that whenever you're planning to go offline, ensure your brand has a very strong consumer pull, right? Because otherwise, offline as a market, it is a complicated environment, right? To be actually able to discover a product that you've not really heard of or seen, then that model itself becomes very difficult in terms of sustainability, because it is a capital-intense, channel, and if the sales are not happening, then the profitability won't come. So I think having a very strong consumer pull is one. Second, having a differentiated proposition and a story with which consumers can connect with you also becomes important, because out of, the same category can have 10 different brands. There will be brands which are legacy brands which have existed for so long. For the consumer to be able to pick you up over them, there needs to be something more than just the product. Of course, the quality needs to be great, but other than that, what is it that you can give them in terms of purpose, in terms of vision, that they buy into and they pick you up compared to the other? For a new brand, I think these two things I feel is very important.
And outside of for example, those are far more important in a multi-brand environment. In an exclusive environment, I think there is no one-size-fit-all strategy. Right? And as a brand, you will need to experiment and do a few permutation combinations, right? I mean, for a few brands, a kiosk strategy might work, right? For a few brands, a large store format strategy might work because they're more experiential in nature. A few brands, right? I mean, is it high street versus all locations? Locations matter a lot, right? In-store layout. So I think before you scale and execute this at scale, do those relevant experiments to understand what is your, sort of PMF in the retail environment. Right? And once you're clear about your PMF and once the economics of that PMF is looking good, that's when you can double down.
Great. One last question. I got this opportunity to ask the same question to Aman and Piyush also. Just wanted to hear your version to this. Is Shark Tank के बाद क्या बदला और क्या spike आया और वो sustained spike था या it is just like it just happened and then went away?
मेरी तो फोटोग्राफी स्किल्स बहुत इम्प्रूव हो गई हैं, क्योंकि मैं जहाँ जाता हूँ लोग कहते हैं हमारी इनके साथ फ़ोटो खींच दो, तो मैं मतलब खींच रहा होता हूँ. तो आई थिंक आई हैव बिकम अ मच बेटर फोटोग्राफर than I was earlier.
But you were always a great photographer.
Thank you. I would take that as a compliment.
In the business?
No, I think after Shark Tank, the ecosystem has evolved fairly well, where, even entrepreneurs who are just starting out or within the family, that risk-taking capability has gone significantly up because people believe that this is hard work and this is not just कि मैं कुछ भी कर रहा हूँ type जो पहले होता था. I think that mentality has changed. It has become more of a dinner table conversation than anything else, where from kids to your dadi, all of you guys are sitting together discussing इसको ऐसी valuation क्यों मिली, ये idea कैसे है, ये भी idea हो सकता है. I think all of that has evolved beautifully. That's one of the largest change. Of course, when you're representing your own company on a TV platform like that with a viewership so large, you also, the awareness increases, not just around you, but also around your brand, right? The brand searches increases. People want to know more about you, how you've built the brand, how you're working, what is the current progress, and all of that. Some of those conversations have gone up, and people get to know the face behind the brand, and I think that's the best thing that has happened, because it just suddenly humanizes what you're doing, the business that you're doing, right? And now they believe more in you, your values, and hence your connection with the brand. So they'll be able to tell more stories when they're looking at your brand or buying a product from you. And that, I think, strengthens the connection. So a lot of positives in my view.
Perfect. Thank you. That is all for the session. Thanks a lot for taking our time. It's been really a good session and pleasure.